My friends, the ocean is mined and the clock for World War III has been paused. It is June 22nd, 2026, and global history is being rewritten in two completely opposite scenarios that the mainstream media is unable to connect. Pay attention as the Vice President of the United States, Joe Vance, accompanied by Witkoff and Kirchner, sit at the table with Iranian negotiators. At a luxurious resort in the Bungerstock Mountains in Switzerland, they are leading the highest level of direct diplomatic engagement between the two countries since 1979. A silent nightmare rests at the bottom of the ocean. 80 naval mines remain lost, scattered randomly across the muddy floor of the Strait of Hormuz. 80 warheads of pure destruction untracked because the Iranian military simply forgot where they put them. Now stop and think about that. They set a blind trap in the planet's most vital artery and lost the map. But the United States' response to this threat was not a weak diplomatic retreat. It was the deployment of the most overwhelming force the ocean has seen this decade. What we're going to dissect today is not a simple peace treaty. We're going to expose the war machine that operates behind the scenes, forcing this agreement to exist. We are facing a monumental strategy that I will name here in our elite analysis as the Invisible Guillotine. Remember that name. The Invisible Guillotine is pure military leverage. A blade hanging over Tehran's neck made up of 27 American Navy warships currently in the theater of operations. Look at the level of this mobilization. This represents 40,000 from the entire active American fleet deployed around the world, concentrated at a single global choke point. We're talking about 15,000 sailors, 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, 10 Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers including the imposing USS Frankie Peterson Jr. and USS Michael Murphy. In addition to 2 amphibious assault ships carrying 1,500 Marines ready for hostile invasions in case Cargo Island becomes a target again. Today, the game has changed here. Is Iran not negotiating because it suddenly found goodwill with thousands of military personnel around? They are in Switzerland because if they leave the table, the invisible guillotine comes down. And they know they couldn't withstand another American and Israeli military beating after the recent exchanges of fire that left those American crews battle-hardened. To understand how the invisible guillotine stifles any attempt at betrayal, we need to look to the sky because total surveillance, true overwatch, is where psychological terror happens. Because the United States Space Force has satellites so precise they can read a general's ID badge on his chest from orbit. But below orbit, the air is thick with more than 100 American aircraft armed to the teeth. At the top of this pyramid of predation, flying high and slow at an altitude of 15.2 kilometers, is the RQ-4 Global Hawk drone and its naval variant, the MQ-4C Triton. And this mechanical monster carries the ANZPY-3 radar capable of scanning 7 million square kilometers in a single 24-hour mission. This means that Iran has nowhere to hide. It reads hull signatures, tracks missile battery emissions, and monitors every Revolutionary Guard speedboat that dares to leave the port. Just below, hunting for invisible danger, the P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft dominates the sea, dropping sonar buoys to hunt the Kilo-class diesel-electric submarines that Iran has managed to hide. These submarines, capable of laying mines and firing torpedoes, are the silent threat that the P-8 neutralizes. The greatest in the world. Disaster. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. Disaster. It's a disaster. Rotating radar that acts as the eyes of the fleet while the giant E-3 AWACS manages the entire battle space, ensuring perfect deconfliction between the forces. And then we get to the lethal force, the F-15E fighters, the F-35 F-18 and the feared F-22. Raptor, which uses its electronic attack capability to completely hunt down Iranian missile batteries before they even fire. But the most terrifying message for Iran is the return of the veteran that refused to die. Or the A-10 Warthog from the 75th Expeditionary Fighter Squadron escaping retirement. This machine now flies low over the Hormuz carrying AGM-65 Maverick missiles, which means a precision nightmare that doesn't miss its target even in swarms of boats. Supported by AH-64 Apache helicopters and littoral combat ships like the USS Canberra or the USS Santa Barbara and the USS Tulsa, operating unmanned underwater vehicles to clear the channel, the United States has created an impenetrable steel cordon. It doesn't matter if it's a stealth F-35 or a rugged A-10 Warthog, if Iran moves a single piece, the sky comes crashing down on them in seconds. But modern war isn't fought only with steel. It's decided by the economy and the ability to keep the world turning. That's why you need to subscribe to the channel now, turn on the notification bell and leave your like on the video, because it takes a lot of work to make this. My friends, the latest analyses reveal the deep schizophrenia of the Iranian state. The agreement on the table, born from a 14-point memorandum of understanding signed on June 17 between Trump and the Iranian president Pezeshkian, requires a 60-day ceasefire. The lifting of the American naval blockade and the start of direct nuclear negotiations in exchange for free passage in Hormuz. We are talking about a technical window where Iran needs to reveal the exact location of its 440 kilos of uranium enriched to 60%. But here comes the rule of the shadow play. What we see on the surface is never the complete reality. I usually say that what appears is only 10% of the reality behind the geopolitical scenes. There is a cold civil war within Iran's own regime. Pay attention. On the same weekend when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was shaking hands in Switzerland and claiming that navigation was normal, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard was issuing state orders for the complete closure of the waterways, threatening to destroy the agreement the moment Israel fired at Lebanon. It's a brutal internal power struggle. And in the middle of this shadow play, the United States Central Command reported that 55 commercial ships crossed the strait, carrying the colossal sum of 17 million barrels of oil in just 24 hours. That's schizophrenia. On one side, the strait is closed. On the other, someone is saying that 17 million barrels just crossed. The global economy does require this flow, yes, and President Trump made that very clear in a forceful decree on social media. There will be no toll in the Strait of Hormuz for 60 days unless it is imposed by the United States of America for services rendered as the guardian angel. This is the breaking of the historical paradigm of subservience and subservice. It is the clear demonstration that America has regained control of the choke point. Current diplomacy understands that you should keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. And the global economy running at full steam without getting American boots stuck in another failed ground campaign like what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq. And by the way, it was a war that only fueled the arms industry and certain lobbies interested in gas and oil from that region. So that's the true essence of the doctrine of peace through strength. And that's why the verdict of our analysis and the concept you need to keep in mind right now is armed peace. Go down to the comments now and type in all caps, armed peace. I repeat, show that you understood the change in the global stage and type armed peace, or peace through strength, right? There is no peace in territories through weak concessions. Peace only exists when the invisible guillotine shines sharp above their heads, monitored by Space Force and backed by a deconfliction hotline that demands immediate sanity. But the global chessboard is relentless and always exacts its price in blood and infrastructure. As the agreement process moves forward, the residual impact of the previous war continues to devastate the region. We need to look at the absurdity that just happened in Qatar. The natural gas and liquefied natural gas complex, which is the largest export facility of its kind in the world, is responsible for supplying a fifth of the entire global LNG supply. It suffered a catastrophic internal explosion during the early morning hours. 54 workers were injured and 18 are missing. And what is the origin of this tragedy? I challenge you to write now in the comments. That same complex had previously been severely hit by unprecedented missiles and drones. March Qatar to have a new gas system. The explosion just now happened precisely when the workers were trying to restart operations at the damaged facility. Look at the level of geopolitical embarrassment. Qatar acts as the great neutral mediator in these negotiations in Switzerland, politely taking a seat at the table with the Iranians. while its own vital infrastructure, the heart of its economy, is blown up as a direct consequence of previous attacks. It's a scenario of diplomatic insanity, where the country negotiating peace bleeds from wounds opened by the very country it is trying to pacify. The pressure of the invisible guillotine is forcing a temporary alignment, a technical submission based on the absolute fear of annihilation by American air and naval power, but the pieces remain unstable. The memorandum was signed, a 60-day technical roadmap set, and the American war machine will stay as an armed, unseen player in the conference room. It continued. It will remain stationed, acting as the invisible and armed player inside the conference room. History has taught us that the Iranian regime operates through betrayal. The great tension hanging in the air is not about what will happen today under the watchful eyes of the drones. The terrifying question I leave for you is this: what happens on day 61? Yes, many are worried, many are questioning this agreement. Now I'm going to add a little spice to today's analysis for you to think about on your own. Also on this occasion, the United States had just lifted sanctions on Iranian oil. In other words, Iran can sell oil to the whole world, and with one difference. It doesn't have to be below market value, it can be at the normal prices that all countries currently use. Now, look at the detail, look at the gift I'm going to give you. Who pays the minimum price, market price at rock bottom cost? It's China. Now, with the value of Iranian oil flowing freely to all countries around the globe, why would Iran keep selling oil cheaper to China? And I'll tell you more. For China to maintain its industrial hegemony, for China to continue the growth it has been experiencing, until 2050 when it will challenge American military and economic hegemony, it needs a constant supply of cheap oil. But for China to have a constant supply of cheap oil, it needs chaos in the Middle East and in Russia. Because if the Middle East enters a time of peace, oil prices level out to market value and it loses the advantage it has when Iran is sanctioned. The same thing would happen if the war in Ukraine ended tomorrow. The value of Russian oil would also start operating at the same market prices. Of course. Well, all of China's competitors, and I would include India in this scenario, would buy oil at the same price. Once again, China only benefits if oil is cheap for them, not for the whole world but for them, because if prices level out, the Chinese regime collapses. So with this perspective, looking at the big global picture, it makes sense for Trump to release Iranian oil to the market. Also, keep in mind that by releasing it now, the price of gasoline in the United States plummets immediately, and that's pretty much what Trump wants. Now, is there a short-term impact for Israel? Yes, the agreement is controversial. I want your opinion. Comment here. Now come with me. Just like weak nations are swallowed up, your voice sinks on the internet if you don't have a lethal method. You have brutal knowledge, but you suffer every day, days with irrelevance. You post, deliver gold, and the algorithm ignores you. Many people ask me every day how I reach tens of millions of views by going head-to-head with the system. The answer is pure retention engineering. That's why on July 12th in Curitiba, I'm going to unlock the black box of this method. Will it be an in-person immersion? Only 10 people locked in a professional studio to forge your relentless authority and teach you how to truly monetize. There are strictly 10 seats. When the last one is taken, the steel door closes. The QR code is now appearing on your screen. Link in the description and in the first pinned comment. Or if you prefer, type "I want" in the comments now and shield your communication. I'm waiting for you here at my table. And for you who are tired of spending an hour in front of Netflix or Amazon looking for a cool movie or series to watch with your family, we created our channel with tips on series and movies. A fantastic curation that you'll enjoy without any fuss or complaints, already giving you an idea of what to expect in entertainment. I know it's great to watch movies, films, to watch a series. Right now there are amazing series talking about the conflict in the Middle East, giving you a close look at the inner workings of intelligence services. See you next time. Wonderful ones talking about the conflict in the Middle East, bringing uprooted bamboos, torn from the editions. Link in the description, in the pinned comment, and also in the card that will appear on your screen. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave your like. Because, you know, it takes work to shield your mind. I'm Shimon Oliveira, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.